In the fall, as the weather starts to change and the evening temperatures begin to drop, it's only a matter of time before your garden is hit with a bad frost or a hard killing freeze. And unfortunately, that's when a lot of your plants can be just wiped out. But in this video, I'll show you how you can easily dig your plants out of the garden and get them inside and under protection. But not the way you would expect. What makes this method so great is that you can transfer tons of plants to safety in just minutes. So stay with me now and I'll show you exactly how I do that. You spend all year tending your garden, all that weeding and watering and care. It's a lot of work, but that's okay. Growing your own food is always rewarding when you can finally start picking. When it's getting close to the end of the season though, you have to make sure to always keep an eye on the weather and be ready to act if the temperature is expected to really drop. After all, you've put in all that time and effort. It's a huge investment. You don't want to jeopardize the rest of your harvest now. I don't mean when the temperature is hovering just above freezing. Most plants can handle that, even if it's a light frost. And if they are sensitive, you can always cover the beds with sheets or row covers to insulate them. No, what I'm talking about is a hard killing freeze, where the temperature drops below 28 degrees Fahrenheit or -2 or -3 Celsius. Some gardeners still refer to that as a killing frost, but technically, it's a freeze. Simply covering the plants may not be enough to get them through the entire night. And you always know when the temperature has just gotten too low by checking on your peppers and tomatoes. They're very sensitive and they're always one of the first casualties. It's not all bad news though. Luckily, there are some plants that can survive a freeze without too much difficulty, like these leeks. The same goes for carrots and beets. You don't have to be too concerned about them either. In fact, with some vegetables, it's better to wait and pick them after a freeze because it actually helps to improve their flavor. This is especially true for some of the cruciferous vegetables like kale and collard greens, which I might say are very easy to grow. But for most of your other plants that are more susceptible to frost and freezing, they just won't survive. Those are the ones that you need to be concerned about. If they're too big to move, you absolutely need to finish harvesting them. But for the smaller ones, if you have the time, you could move them to where they can be protected, like a greenhouse or an enclosed sun porch, or even an insulated cold frame. But it's always a race. You hear from the weather alerts that the temperature's dropping quickly, so you grab your pots and a shovel and start digging to transfer those plants as fast as you can. But stuffing them into some pots is always cumbersome. You have to shape the root ball to fit, and all that hacking and slicing, it's hard on the roots. It's hard on the plants, and it's cold. It's hard on your hands too. It just takes a lot of time. You can never transplant an entire bed that way. The best you could hope for would be a handful of plants and be happy that you can at least save some of them. And afterwards, of course, you hope they survive all that shock and trauma of being moved around. But with a little planning earlier in the season, when you have more time, here's a way that you can prepare your plants so you can quickly transfer them all to safety when it's needed, with none of those transplanting issues. And you'll hardly need any warning at all with this method. I start during the summer and get the seeds planted for those vegetables I want to harvest during the fall and even into the winter. This year I'm doing cilantro, spinach, some bok choy, and a few types of lettuce. Since I didn't have any free space in the garden yet, I used the regular self-packs to get the seedlings going. And I just grew them on the deck because the greenhouse was just too hot to use. And with all that summer heat, I've had to take extra care to keep them well watered too, like 2 to 3 times a day. After harvesting my garlic, I've got a bed now that I've cleared and I can finally get these seedlings planted. But we're going to be doing it in a completely different way. Here I've gathered a bunch of various sized pots. They're just the normal containers you would use for plants with the regular holes in the bottom for drainage. And although I am going to use all these, including the smaller ones, it's better if you can find more medium to large pots, and you'll see why in a minute. First I'll start digging a small trench and use the dirt to fill some of the pots. Make the trench just a little deeper than the containers you're using. And now, here's the difference. Instead of putting the seedlings directly in the ground, we're going to put them in all these pots. You can plant just one seedling in each if you want, but for this cilantro, since the pots are so large, I'm planting several so they'll be sure to get full and bushy. Now, as you may have already guessed, we're going to put all these pots in the trench and bury them. Not only fill in all the gaps between them, but also add soil on top so the pots are completely covered. We'll keep doing this until all the seedlings are transplanted. And as you're filling the pots, you could take this time to fortify the soil with some fertilizer or compost if you want. Here I'll add some of the lettuce and my spinach. When you're done, you should barely notice that there are any pots in the ground. If you happen to slightly bury any of the seedlings, that's okay. They'll poke back up in time. As you're positioning them, just be sure to make enough room between the rows, in case you need to walk in there. You don't want to be stepping on the edge of the pots and crushing them. So when the seedlings were on the deck, they were much more susceptible to the harsh heat of the sun and could dry out very quickly. But now when they're in the ground like this, the surrounding soil acts like a buffer. It will keep the temperature of the plants and their roots more regulated. And since both the top and the bottom of the pots are in contact with the soil, the moisture from the garden can travel into the pots, and that'll ensure the plants don't dry out. During the season, just treat this bed like you would any other part of the garden. The only difference might be with the weeding. You'll need to pull more of them by hand. You can still use a tool, but use it only in the middle of the row. If you go too deep or too close to the pots, you can easily tear into them, and that's not what you want. So when the time finally comes and the freeze is about to hit, you won't have to panic and scramble as much. The job of getting them to safety is now a breeze. The plants are already in their pots. All you have to do is dig them up. Just take a shovel and loosen the soil around them and underneath. Just be sure not to slice into the containers. Then you can easily lift the pots out of the ground and just have to brush off the soil on the outside and it's good to go. Sometimes the roots may have tunneled out of the bottom and into the surrounding soil, but you can slice them off if you need to. The majority of the roots are still safe inside the pot, so the plant really won't go through any shock at all. That's why it was good to plant them into the larger pots so their roots had more room to grow into. Now it's just a matter of going along each row and popping out all the plants. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can get them all plucked out of the garden. And now we just need to get them to safety. With so many containers that we planted, it'll take more than a couple of loads with a wheelbarrow to get them all moved. For me, I'm fortunate to have a small greenhouse that I can keep them in. Since all these plants have been in the ground, I wouldn't recommend bringing them into your home though. The soil can easily have all sorts of bugs and critters in them. I just lay them out in a corner and then go back for another load. I'll organize them better later, but right now it's just a matter of getting them inside. It's pretty impressive, but I was able to take care of the entire bed and transferred more than 100 plants. All that in less than half an hour. And not one mishap. These will all survive just fine. Although we did have a family of rabbits constantly munching on the spinach. That's why they're not looking as good as they should, but now that they're inside, they'll easily recover. We were able to harvest from these plants while they were in the garden, and now I can continue picking straight into winter. Last year I also had great success when I did this with basil and Swiss chard. It's always nice to have some flowers ready to move too. And if you were to start in the spring and use larger pots, you can even do this with some of your peppers. It's a great technique and it works well with practically any compact plant. I hope you enjoyed this video and plan to do this in your garden. Thanks for following my channel and see you next time here on Garden Well, Eat Well.